Welcome back, everybody. We've got 2 new people today on the pod. We had a little bit of a schedule change, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But we've got Kyle and a good friend Nick here. So, Kyle, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell everybody kind of what you do, who you are, and maybe your favorite popsicle flavor.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Kyle Doherty. I'm actually the customer service manager here at Dive Bomb. Been here almost 3 years now. Grew up in St. Louis. Knew Cody through some mutual friends and came here and been here since. So love the company, love the way we're going, and my favorite popsicle flavor. It's got to be whatever the blue one is. I don't know. It's
Berry?
blue raspberry.
Blue raspberry. That's a fair answer.
Something like that. Yeah.
Go ahead, Basler. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm Nick Bosler. Grew up here around St. Louis. Been running Dive Bomb for a long time. I'm an electrician, wife, 3 kids. Been doing stuff for Dive Bomb here and there for the last 4 years and have developed some pretty good relationships with these guys. And we have a good time every fall and winter, and looking forward to another good year this year, and thrilled to be on the podcast.
If you are going up 79, he's also the one on the billboard. You will
Whoa.
see. Yep.
It's a celebrity.
He is. We got a celeb in the house.
I don't know about that, but
Local celeb.
I did see a picture of you and Alexis in front of the billboard a couple weeks ago.
well, the thing is, she makes me look good.
That's
We all
it.
know that.
That's it.
It's fair.
So
That's it.
Fair.
That's
like
the only
it.
reason we're on the billboard.
You didn't tell us your popsicle flavor of choice.
Oh, it's got to be pink.
Pink?
Yes.
What's that?
Like bubble gum?
I don't think it's
Pink
bubble
lemonade?
gum,
Sure as hell can't be
Strawberry.
bubble gum.
No.
All right.
We're gonna need to
We'll
look
give him
into
pink.
this.
Let's just we'll
Yeah,
leave it
we'll
at
have
that.
to go back and fact
Yeah.
check.
We've had a hell of a week. It's opening Goose today of Missouri. We had the road guys in. They flew in for the hunt last night. We basically told them, no, we're not doing anything. So it's midday. People are killing geese around us, but we couldn't lock it down. So let's go into this a little bit. Let's do it. So Nick's got a great field in town. We've hunted it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, going on the fourth. This is
Fourth
the fourth year. Yeah.
Fourth year. And normally it's a phenomenal early season field. I mean, it seems like it's one of the first one that's always cut. Geese get in it. There's a couple big roost lakes and loaf areas right around it. So normally it's lights out. And as soon as they shelled corn, how many were in there?
Shoot, they. I think he cut it 10, 12 days ago, and almost immediately we had 250, 300 in it, and everything was looking really good. We had. I worked with the farmer pretty closely this year, and he was kind enough to leave us some standing corn to put some hyverts in, and man, everything was dialing up perfect. And 4 or 5 days after it was cut, they were in it, and then they weren't. And that is early season for you, right?
Exactly.
Pretty much.
And what was our scouting process? We had 5 trucks on the ground for
We had a lot of
week?
people.
Yeah, I mean,
we had guys on roosts, on the field, on other fields, across the river. I mean, we had the last week was like basically 5 trucks full time, and then
morning
a week
and evening.
prior was
Morning
kind of
and
checking
evening,
it. Yeah, every day I live close, so I was able to drive by and just see what was going on. But it was a tremendous scouting effort,
Which,
given
as
where the
of what's
field
going
is.
on, hasn't been much as of late,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
No, it's been a lot
Which
of
is why we don't have a pile of geese, and we're sitting here doing a podcast
instead
instead of doing it in the field.
The whole
Right.
point of today was this podcast. Me and Bowie got it all set up in a hyvert here in the showroom to make sure that it would work. We were going to do it from the field. It was going to be badass. It normally this early goose hunt is fairly easy. We're lucky enough to drive out to the field, set everything up. It's 20 minutes from everybody's houses other than Basler's here, but we were going to have everything set up in the blind, do it live, and anyways, we're here at noon.
The birds decided something
that's
different. for us.
hunting in a nutshell.
It's just how it goes. We had a lot of theories on why this happened, like where these geese went, what they did, why they went from feeding in our field super hard to effectively not feeding at all, or split. The roost would split up. It'd go, 40 would go here, 50 would go here, 20 would go there. Talk a little bit about that, Nick. Like,
Yeah.
tell us what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, so, right after it was cut, weather was looking great. It was cooler. We did just get a warm up. That's not helping any. These geese, they don't really need any grain right now, so they're just hanging out at the golf course, eating grass.
Yeah.
Going water to water.
Yeah.
Relaxing all day. Shortly after it was cut, we got that rain for 4 or 5 days straight.
A lot of rain.
Which opened up a ton of areas that didn't hold water normally. So that really broke the birds up. And pretty much what was going in our advantage quickly was going to our disadvantage.
Yeah.
They were so spread out. Not only that, early season, farmers are taking corn off every day.
Yeah.
There's a new field getting cut every day. That didn't help. Just spread the birds out so much. Why they just completely pulled off of our field, I still don't really know. That field, like last year, was, I mean,
it was lights out.
It was
lights out.
ridiculous,
I mean, we were done by 7:30.
Yeah, I mean, we shot a 10-man in 25 minutes last year.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's the way of it is what it is, and we can only keep scouting, and
I think
hopefully next week we can get into something.
I think we definitely made the right call. There was always that thought of like, well, let's just go sit there this morning and kind of see what happens. But I think just letting it ride, letting everybody around, kind of shoot birds. There's some hunters that hunt some fields, within a mile or two. Kind of let them stir some birds up, and then we go in there once they get comfy in our field, and we can shoot them pretty well. But
it's not lack of birds. I mean, the birds are around. It's just it's been a while since we've seen them this broken up and spread out. So I think just resting it, as painful as it was for everyone today, is definitely the better call. I mean, it's the first day. Obviously, you want to go out and get them on the first day, but I think by letting it rest and letting those birds hopefully start to concentrate again. I mean, maybe throughout the week or next weekend, we might get back into them.
And not only that, starting tomorrow, we are going to get a cool down.
Yeah.
It's not going to be drastic, but it's certainly not going to hurt us. Today it's going to be, I think the high is 88,
90
degrees.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't want to be in a cornfield.
No. Even when we got a little excited on Thursday night when we had, like 40 or 50 show up, we know there's 500-600 geese, in the general vicinity.
Right.
40 or 50 showed up on Thursday night. We kind of got all excited, and I went and scouted Friday morning, and not a goose flew. We looked last night, nothing came. So it's kind of just like, let's scratch this one and give them some time and wait. Right. Let them get real comfy in there.
Cut our losses. Yeah. And, you go through all the work all week, and you're scouting. Guys are putting miles on their trucks and, fuel in their trucks and burning it up. And you want that first day to be so successful after you put in so much work.
Right.
But I think we made the right call today by, like you said, just let it rest. Hopefully the pressure from the other guys around us is going to, be beneficial to us in 5-6 days.
Yeah. And I think that's another interesting thing is like you talk about scouting and putting miles on the truck, and when I think about scouting, I think about when I'm, down in Arkansas, or I go up to North Dakota, or we go to Canada, or whatever that is on freelance times. But I think I put more miles and fuel in the truck here in St. Louis, just like chasing after these city geese more than anything else. I've got the Defiance bottoms right by the house that I check every morning and every single evening. I know Nick checks the bottoms there where we hunt. That
on my way to and from work
constantly. Yeah. Kyle does the same thing. I mean, we've got a group text of 5 or 6 guys that are constantly looking for geese here in a 50-mile radius. So anyways, it's interesting to think about scouting your hometown as much, if not more, than when you go to North Dakota for 3 days and you put 1,000 miles on the truck.
Well, and it's a completely different scenario that a lot of people aren't used to. You go to North Dakota, it's wide open. You can see geese for miles.
True.
Here we're in the hills, if you want to call it that. You can lose geese pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, we're driving down a road, hey, turn on this road the next. It's
right.
We're dealing with resident
I'm on
geese.
270. How do I get over there? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's not like, oh, hey, I just turn on this gravel road and I can follow these birds. It's interchanges, and it's a different aspect.
Well, and I think that also makes the hunting itself a little bit harder. I think it's a double-edged sword for us here because what holds the birds and keeps them around is also somewhat a hindrance because we're so close to town that these birds, they have places to go that's essentially a refuge, for lack of a better word. So, any sort of pressure, anything they don't like, they have all these different resources they can go to where we don't have access to. And it's not like there's other hunters aren't going to bump them. No one's going to bump them.
No.
And so they can get comfortable in places that we just don't have access to. And I think it certainly changes the dynamic of how geese around here, feed and use the fields and different things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to use a quote from Ira, Cheeto eaters.
Yep.
Yeah.
They can go in the nearest parking lot and find a snack.
You're totally right.
Like, truly, they are Cheeto eaters.
Yeah.
Whatever's there, they're going to eat.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate for us right now.
Well, it was like we were scouting all week, and we put Kyle on one of the roost areas, and he was like, you guys aren't going to believe this, but all these geese are just standing on the sidewalk.
No joke. I'm not kidding. When I pulled into there, they were split about 50-50. And half of them were on the water, just kind of loafing, and the other half were walking on the sidewalk next to the road. I'm not. Before I even got to the property, I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like they're just walking down the sidewalk.
Yeah. It adds for a different dynamic.
Definitely.
It's completely different than anything that we really, this 10-day season that we have in early season, which is much later than a lot of states around us. A lot of guys are opening in September.
Yeah.
We don't open until the first weekend of October. It's a completely different thing that we do than we'll do the rest of the year.
Very true.
Because after this 10-day season, we actually wait for the migrators to get here.
Yep.
The resident geese, they get hard to hunt after this weekend. You initially go in and bang them up, and then, hey, we're going to sit on the golf course.
Yeah, I mean, we started hunting that field again pretty heavily in January.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much don't touch it until after Christmas because, we just don't get cold enough quick enough.
Right.
And that it is what it is.
Yeah.
And, we've adapted, and we just know that, hey, there's no reason to put the pressure on the field and go out there and watch an empty sky.
Right.
Whenever we can play the weather and wait until they get here and then have some really good hunts.
Yeah, exactly. How did you? This field is interesting setup. It's not right off, but it adjoins one of the major causeways in St. Louis. It's by some significant social areas. I don't really know how else to describe it. Like if we shoot them, you guys will see it in the video. But But how did you get permission on this field?
So 4 years ago in the summer, my wife and I bought a house. And we had to go sign papers with the title company. And the title company was right next to the bottoms that we now hunt. We had breakfast afterwards, and she had to go back to work. I took the day off. And I said, well, I'm going to drive around. I'm looking at Onyx. Onyx is your best friend.
Yeah.
Always.
You live on Onyx.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So for a while after that, what I did was I would just scroll Onyx all night long. And I would start writing down properties. I'd drop a pin. I'd find water, whether it be river, a big lake. Eventually those birds are going to sit on that water. So what I would do in the summer is I would find crop that was close to water, and I would just make a list. And the list would be 20, 30 people, properties, and I would knock on doors. And I did that for about 3 years straight. So I probably knocked on 75 to 100 doors. And of those 75 to 100, I got 2 yeses.
Wow.
Actually, 3 now.
It's not a high percentage deal.
It's not. And that's what people need to realize.
Yeah.
It's like, no matter what, you're still in the same position. If they say no, you're still in the same position you were
before you walked up
on
there.
that door.
Right.
So you really have nothing to lose. So it's like, I just went with that mindset of like, hey, I have nothing to lose. The worst that he can tell me is no. I've been told no hundreds of times.
Yeah.
As has every other waterfowl hunter that's tried.
No matter where you're at.
No matter where you're at. North Dakota, South Dakota.
The bar.
That
too.
too.
Yeah. So, you just have to be content with, hey, maybe we're not going to get to hunt this field. but the next one could be a yes. And that's why I continually knocked on the next door. Yes, it was discouraging, but it only takes the right yes.
Yeah.
And that 2 right yeses has just, it's been crazy how many geese we have shot over these fields that I just, and it was all just being persistent.
Yeah.
I think the other key too is knocking on doors, physically going. I feel like it's a lot easier. And the landowner or the farmer, whoever's in charge of the field, is a lot more comfortable with you or giving access when they're speaking to you face to face.
Dude.
And you can put any concerns they have at ease. You can talk through things.
100%.
I think that's definitely the way to go, as opposed to just sitting at home and making 50 phone calls.
You talk like from a sales perspective, right? Like, it's so hard for somebody to say no to you if you're sitting in a meeting or you're sitting at lunch and you actually ask the question or the ask, face to face. It's much more difficult to say no because you learn people, you understand their intentions, all those things go into their decision making rather than getting a phone call saying, "Hey, I found your number online.
Right.
Can I hunt your field?" They don't know who you are. They don't know what you look like. They don't know anything about that.
Well, and as humans, we judge on first sight.
100%.
Regardless of what anybody says, you're going to make a judgment when you first meet someone.
Yep.
So that's why it's important, hey, be well dressed.
Yep.
You don't want to come looking like a bum
right after
to knock
work
on somebody's door. You want to be respectful. The way that you talk to somebody when you're face to face with them says a lot more to them than a phone call.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just the way we are as humans, and it's much better when you can find where that landowner lives and you can knock on the door. Obviously, at an appropriate time. You're not going to go
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
It's all about respect. These landowners, most times, they have nothing to gain from giving you permission to hunt the field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're trying to do this at as little a cost as we can, right? So we're not just going out and, hey, throwing money at farmers. Hey, can we hunt your field? We'll give you this much.
No.
Because like I said, I'm a dad with 3 kids. I don't have a lot of extra money to.
No.
Hey, So I get permission by just being respectful.
Right.
I understand. My grandparents had farms growing up, and it's all about respecting the landowner.
I agree.
That's what it all boils down to.
I agree, and I think that was a great point. Like, having all this, extra cash to spend on, buying, leasing farms or paying for this or paying for permission or anything like that. And that I'm the first to admit it. North Dakota, I've absolutely offered a couple $100 to be able to hunt a feed if it was something that we really needed.
You're far from home, and it's
100%.
Like, hey, we want to shoot some birds up here. We've made the trip.
Yeah.
We've spent the money.
How about $200 and a case of beer? And a lot of times that does make the difference. And one thing that, Nick texted us at the beginning of the year and was like, "Hey, I'd like to leave a strip of corn so we can hide hiverts a little bit easier." Last year we had a great hide, but after Christmas is when it really got good. We picked up all the Christmas trees. Cody went through his neighborhood, picked up all the Christmas trees from people's curbs, and we staked them with T-posts and furnace wire. And we had 15 Christmas trees out there that kind of lined up the hiverts.
Where instead of just having a 20-foot, worth of hiverts, we made that hide 60, 70, 80 feet long.
Right.
To where, hey, you're not just sticking out in the middle as a sore thumb. It actually looks like maybe a ditch line that the farmer couldn't do anything with.
And that was
in plain sight kind of
hiding
thing
in plain sight. And that was your point this year was like, hey guys, we've got 8 guys that normally hunt with us. I was like $150 per guy to leave this corn. And so from my perspective, I don't really look at it as like we spent money to lease the farm. We more, spent money. We basically paid the farmer to leave that crop in for us so we could hide better.
Well, which is the most important part.
Exactly.
Especially with where we're at. Like, we know the birds are going to frequent that area.
Yes.
We're always going to, especially when the migrators get here, we're always going to have birds over the field. So that hide is the most important thing of any hunt.
Yeah, and I think touching on your point of when to ask for permission is huge. Like, if you see somebody getting out of the combine and hopping in a truck, or somebody is in a grain cart or something, that's not the time to ask for permission.
They've got something to do.
They don't want to stop and talk to you. I mean, obviously, that may be the only time, especially if you're in North Dakota early season, they're taking short grain off, and that's just the time that you get. But for you, it's summertime. When they're sitting and watching crops grow, it's, let's go have this conversation. I know this is corn, it's only, knee high right now, but come October, they're going to be shelling corn, and I want to have permission before they even start that process.
Right. And which is a little bit different for us here. And it's just, you go to different parts of the country and they do it differently. Like, I just got back from South Dakota, and the way that they do permission is like they get permission for maybe a day or a weekend. Whereas the way that I've kind of set things up for myself is like, once I have permission, I do what I can to just, hey, I have that permission all year long.
Try to get it exclusive.
How do you keep, I feel like you've had this farm for about 4 years. How do you keep permission year over year? What do you do in the off season? What do you do to start the next season? What are your kind of tactics there?
So, it's an older couple that owns the farm that we primarily hunt. And like my wife, Alexis, she's made chocolate covered strawberries for the farmers, or brought them breakfast, or, just little things that even they're never going to say that they want anything.
Right.
An older couple, it is what it is. We appreciate that you're taking care of things, but just that extra little thing. I don't just start stopping in October. Right?
Yeah.
I stop in maybe once a month, or maybe a couple times a month, just to check on them, see how they're doing.
Yeah.
How's everything going? It's all about building a relationship, just like everything is. It's marketing yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I think the constant communication is, Nick does it really well, but once you secure a field, that communication with them,
I agree,
outside of season is big.
I agree.
And you get one pitch, and now, good or bad, no matter how you shake it in the industry, you have a lot more people doing this. So these farmers are getting, dozens of people requesting permission, whereas I grew up in these bottoms, and when I was a kid, you could have walked up to someone's door and been like, "Hey, can we hunt geese here?" And they'd be like,
"Of course,
sure, I don't care." But now, you got people calling all the time.
Well,
and it's probably all at once. Like, Nick said, the summer's the best time. Get in there early, get permission early. Whereas, a lot of people find geese late, and you're asking permission on geese that you found like today or this week,
and
it's
7 o'clock in the evening.
Exactly.
Right before dinner.
Exactly.
So that you can try to hunt the next
day.
You get one chance to pitch it. So
right.
Well, and even last year, I remember scouting that field from the gravel without going down, into their driveway and the backside of the field. I remember scouting that field from the gravel, and there was 4 trucks that came by, and Scout was scouting as well, and like asked me, "Hey, are you hunting this?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. Like, we've got permission on this field. We're just watching it for our next hunt." But it seems like every year there's more and more and more eyes on 100%. That field. And that was the other thing that we were lucky with, the way that the farmer split that field and crop this year. The beans are closer to the main roadway, and then the corn, there's a big, 2 swaths of corn basically. So it kind of blocks birds on the ground.
Yeah, if you're just driving by, you can't just see a big feed out there in that field anymore. You really have to get off the main roadway to see what is out there.
There's 10,000 cars that drive by that in 4 hours.
Which I don't think we intended, but it was a wonderful unintentional consequence.
It did work out perfect.
Yeah, it worked out wonderful.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
I found out the reason the farmer left that was because the moisture was higher on that. I guess that corn was in a little bit of a depression.
Yeah, so we got, I guess it was early in the season, we got a bunch of rain, and that ditch that runs through the field.
Yeah.
We got enough rain that it just choked everything out.
Yeah.
So he had to replant all that, and it just kind of worked out to where when he was ready to harvest the rest of the field, hey, this wasn't ready. I was like, hey, that's perfect. It looks like about 2 acres.
Yeah.
So we'll give you this.
And it was dead center in the field, which really helps us because when he cuts beans, we can hunt either side.
Right. So yeah, whenever and having those high verts right there already brushed up, all we have to do is move it to the other side of the swath, and we can now hunt the freshly cut beans, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can, the way it's laid out, you can hunt basically every wind. Yes. Any conditions we could have, we have a setup for it. So then it's just watching the weather and the birds and playing the geese right.
All a matter of just moving some high verts around, which, they're light, they're easy to move around and stake back down.
And we leave those all year, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They sit in the field from October till February, what is it, 6th, 8th?
5th or 6th. Yeah. I haven't looked this year, but 5th or 6th for us, I think.
And so obviously the high verts come with include stakes. We always use those, but when we're doing a permanent set like that for multiple months, normally we'll do rebar or T-post or something like that.
Rebars, you know, like some conduit, you know, drive some conduit down in the ground, cut it in 5-foot lengths, pretty readily available.
Do it before
it
freezes.
Yeah. Do it before it freezes.
Yeah, that's no joke.
You know, just because there are going to be days where we get that 30, 40 mile an hour north wind.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have to chase those across the field.
No.
So yeah, with leaving them, we do a little bit more of a permanent setup, not just hey, we're setting the high birds, we're going to hunt in them today. If we do get a big wind, you're inside of it and you can hold it down type of thing. So yeah, definitely a lot more permanent, because we can it's in a spot where we can kind of just of an evening, if we want to hunt, jump out there.
It's ready to go.
You know, it doesn't take long to set 5-10 dozen decoys and you're hunting.
Well, that's another
right
thing
after work
to communicate when you have access with these landowners is things like that. Like, you know, can we leave a permanent high?
True.
Can we do things like that?
Yeah.
If we wouldn't have left that swath and we didn't have the relationship with the farmer that we did, it'd be more difficult to leave.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and you know, full transparency is the biggest thing. An open line of communication. You have to be able to communicate with your farmer.
Yeah.
And that's bottom line. They just want to be in the loop.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't want to try to control what you're doing. They just want you to respect their land and keep them in the loop. Hey, are you going to have 2 guys here this day? Or, hey, are you going to have 6 guys here this day? Because they're taking all the risk.
Right. Right.
You know, so they just want to be in the loop, and being fully transparent and having that open line of communication is the most important thing.
Well, it's just like, you know, you telling them, hey, you may see a silver Ford here this week. My buddy Nathan's going to be scouting because I'm, you know, working late or whatever. Or you may see a white Tahoe. Kyle's going to be there scouting. Like, just give them a heads up of like what they're going to see. Who's coming down their driveway at 6 o'clock while they're eating dinner to watch for geese.
Right.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side of that, having that communication, when I see birds starting to hit the field, I just reiterate to them, I go talk to them, hey, there's birds in the field.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that somebody's going to come to knock on your door.
Yeah.
Because they see birds in that field and they'd like to hunt it. And they just so that we're on the same page, just make sure, hey, it doesn't work like deer hunting. You can't give multiple people permission, and they tell people no.
Well, and we had that happen last year with our pal Bill. He great guy, but they had a hot water heater go out, I guess, in their house.
Yeah.
And Bill came by to knock on the door and ask for permission. And they said, oh, you know, somehow the water heater came up. And Bill's like, well, I'll replace that for you. And so a great point of like, how can you help to gain permission? I mean, honestly, that was a genius move on Bill's part.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
To be able to exchange, let me replace your hot water heater for you. I'll install it and, you know, take the old one out. For some goose permission. So, you know, it added another to the blind, but it is what it is.
There's always something to be done on a house or on a farm. And that's why you can't always just take. You know, you have to be willing to put in that work to say, hey, you're giving me permission to hunt the ground, but I would like to return that favor. What can I do to help you?
Right.
Not just help me. What can I do to help you? Just like I sat down with them the other night. And they're having some people come in off the river that don't have permission. Well, hey, I volunteered to walk around the property line and do purple paint for them.
Yeah.
Whether they'll take me up on that, I don't know. But
the
I
offer
offered
was
it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that goes a long way.
And they've been phenomenal landowners. I mean, we hunted the night of their daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
No, we hunted the next morning.
The next morning of their daughter's wedding.
Yeah,
That's
was
right.
Early season last year.
We scouted the night of their daughter's wedding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which was great. I mean,
and
it was a great hunt.
Field, and you know, it was great.
And the morning after, we all went to the house. They had a bunch of leftover beer. We drank some beer with them. I mean, it was a blast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're fantastic. I mean, it's like I said, it goes back to all the knocking on the door. That one has just paid off.
Yeah.
For all the no's that I've ever gotten, the one has paid off tenfold.
Yeah.
I just couldn't agree more. I just couldn't agree more.
Right. I mean, we have shot so many geese out of that field. It's like if they said tomorrow, like, hey, you can't hunt here anymore. It was a great run, you know, like
100%. Get them a gift card to the steakhouse. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's the reality of it. Nothing's ever permanent.
No.
One day we're not going to hunt that field.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it.
Yeah. And
So-
especially with where it is in proximity, the city's going to try to come in and
Anybody. I mean,
they want
that
to
area.
commercialize it.
Yeah.
It's
I'm sure
an
they're
ever-growing area.
they're counting the days until they sell it off.
100%.
The property prices there are
Well, and they're getting older too.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all good things come to an end.
Right.
but
Right.
you definitely try to nurture those relationships as long as you can, so that until they sell it, ideally, if they ever sold it, we'd have access until the day it changed hands.
Right.
Absolutely. And, and you have to kind of foresee that and then make a plan for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, this summer, I'm going to get back on the properties and, hey, wouldn't it be better to have 3 or 4 properties instead of 1 or 2?
Yeah.
Or 5 or 6 instead of 3 or 4. It's just you have to constantly be growing, just like Dive Bomb is and like Cody is.
Yep.
You have to be willing to grow and expand and push out.
Right.
And most of that work gets done in the off season.
Gosh, we need to
Absolutely.
hit that home. Off season.
It's not an off season.
You cannot be running around asking for permission in October and in November when you see ducks or geese sitting in the field. This is something that you just like Nick said, you go through Onyx, you find a location that you like, whether it's based off of water or proximity to something else or whatever it may be. And then you go in April, May, June, July, you figure out what crop is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you start building a relationship.
Right.
It's just like we talk about all the time of the guys who call you in November to hunt. It's if you didn't
where were you at all summer?
Right.
Right.
Reach out to me in July and August, September when we're brushing blinds and get everything set up. And then we have the conversation, but it's, you want to get ahead of the curve.
Oh, for sure.
You can never start too early.
Yeah, if you're ahead of all the guys that are waiting until October, November to try to go get permission.
Yeah.
And it's different for all parts of the country.
100%.
Like we touched on
Right.
earlier. We have the luxury of, hey, I can go in the summer and try to get permission on something and I can retain that permission all year long. It's not like that everywhere. So unfortunately, yes, especially when you travel, obviously you're going to have
hard
to
when you travel.
find birds,
And that's part
knock
of
a
it.
door,
Yep.
and that it is what it is. So that this conversation doesn't really apply to that point. Now there's points that do apply as far as respecting the landowner and, reaching out to them at a reasonable hour and trying to meet them in person. Those are things that do apply, but as far as the year-long permission, that may not apply everywhere.
Right.
And
And when you're scouting locally too, I mean, something we've all done, even when hunting that field, if the birds aren't in the field, we know historically where birds like to fly,
For sure.
where they roost, where they love other fields. So it's you can make notes during season of where you see them. Oh, they're starting to really feed on this side, or they're flying this way. You can make those notes in the season, and then in the off season, when you're looking through those maps, those are some of the first properties you can put on the list.
Well, and I was
That's a great point.
Yeah, I was going to hit on that. I was going to say, a great time to scout is February. For us here in St. Louis,
For
it's
sure.
the end of goose season, the end of duck season. People are kind of tired. They're done putting miles in the truck, but the birds are, if we stay cold, the birds are still here.
Right.
So
Right.
figure out where those birds are feeding when the hunting's over. There's no pressure, and that's where they want to be. And so then you mark that, and now you can go start having the conversations.
That's a really great point, because then you can say, hey, maybe next year it gets colder a little bit earlier.
Exactly.
And then these birds are here when we can still hunt them.
Well, it was just the
because we
defiance bottoms.
Yeah.
We went down there to goose hunt. The duck season had just ended the day before, and everything had froze up, and there were thousands of mallards feeding in the field that we have permission on. And it's something that we noted for this year. If we get a big freeze and everything freezes up, those mallards sit on the sandbar right across the river from the field, and they come into that field. So now we know, okay, we need to have permission on this field all of duck season, not just goose season as well.
Right. And it's just constantly logging knowledge.
Yeah.
Use that knowledge that you learned to just carry over and make the next year better.
Yeah.
Capitalize on that opportunity. Hey, the mallards were in there. They were probably in there for while duck season was still going.
For sure.
But we just didn't realize it.
Well, we weren't
We
paying
didn't even
attention.
think about it.
No, because it's froze. Let's go to the duck club where we've got ice eaters running. We know it's going to be great. It'll be, a good time. The birds are still there. It's something that, somebody always there, easy to scout. But then it's well, on the other side of that, those bottoms are 4 minutes from my house. I could totally scout that. And who doesn't want to go shoot dry field mallards?
Especially
in Missouri,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's
right.
You don't
any
get that too
Missouri duck
often.
hunter
Right.
would love to do that consistently.
Exactly. So just checking that out, and none of my Missouri guys don't go check the Defiance bottoms. But anyways,
Leave those alone.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy, and like I'm definitely guilty of this. I think it's very easy to kind of get short-sighted and tunnel vision in season because you're so focused on trying to get a hunt together right now.
You're focused on your spots.
Right. And so you're not really doing a great job, or at least in the past, I haven't done a great job of paying attention to stuff for the future.
Yeah.
Fields that we can look at in the future, birds flying a direction or a flight line that maybe we haven't looked at or hunted. Like you're so focused on where can I find these birds to hunt tomorrow or in 2 days.
Totally.
But it's like, hey, you can focus on that, but also, like Nick said, just keep notes. Just make notes in your phone, mental notes, whatever, just to build on throughout the offseason.
That never really clicked for me. It's embarrassing to admit it, but that never clicked for me until last season down in Arkansas and hunting public. And we go and hunt public, and you got to be off the woods at a certain time. So what do you do with the back half of your day? We would just go hit the pavement and scout, and we'd go within 100-mile radius of the public area that we hunt. And because we did that, it turned into a new farm that we were able to lease for this season. Birds use it. Basically, we learned during season. It wasn't just like trying to find the next hunt the next day. It was like, how can we make next season better for us?
Right. I mean, you have the internet at your fingertips. Like I said, OnX is like the most important app that we can use.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah,
Use it. You have to utilize it, and you have to be willing to work with it in order to get success.
I totally agree. Let's take a pee break. All right, we're back. We had to take a pee break. We were talking while we were paused. Our good buddy Colton in Nebraska, he had a great opening morning. So that was really hard for us to see all those Snapchats. He had, what was he? Kickback, Gilly.
Kickback gillies. I think they ran 10 dozen V2s.
V2s, that's right. That's what we were
That's
talking
right,
about.
yep.
Yeah.
They still work.
Which is so interesting. We are like, we love V2FFs, right? Of course, it's like fully flocked decoys. Let's go. Let's use them. Those V2s we were talking about this earlier, across the country, had to have killed 100,000 birds. Plus.
Hundreds of thousands. I mean that literally built this company. The V2s are the reason that we have jobs.
It did. You're right.
I mean,
no, you're totally right. Bowie's over here laughing, but you're right.
I mean, it's true. I mean, it started, you look at everything we offer now and soft goods, and it's so much more than a decoy company. But I mean,
V2 was
is the
staple.
foundation, dude. And
I always have people ask, I'm sure you do too as customer service, Kyle, but like, hey guys, I'm on a budget. I've got X amount of dollars to spend. What should I do? I'm not scared to tell them V2s.
not at all.
Not at all.
And it's, and that's kind of what we tell people is like, how much are you hunting if you're on a tight budget, but like, there is nothing wrong with the V2. They are not obsolete in any way.
No.
If you put in the same effort and tactics that you would any other time, if you have a good scout, if you make sure your hide's right, you're where the birds want to be, the V2s will kill them just as good as anything else. I mean, Colton's perfect proof, but I mean, I see it on the back end in customer service all the time. We have a lot of great customers that'll just send, pics after hunts and stuff. And there are still a lot of people buying new V2s, and then there's still a lot of very old V2s in the field.
Yeah, there are a lot of old
and
V2s
they are
in the field.
decoying geese left and right.
Yeah.
I mean, you still can't beat it.
Yeah, and let's be real. Today, like across the Midwest, it's bluebird skies, sunny.
Yeah.
Sunny as can be. And they were landing them from the Snapchats that we received today at their feet.
Right at the boot bag.
Yep.
Bright, sunny skies.
Yeah.
V2s.
The day I probably wouldn't, if I had all the money in the world, the day I wouldn't choose a V2.
Correct.
Right.
They ran them, and they were decoying them within 10 yards themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including
Incredible.
a little jewelry.
A little jewelry, a little quill action, which he didn't shoot the quill, which I thought was interesting.
It's easy. It's easy to critique in slow mo.
It's easy to critique from sitting here where we didn't shoot anything.
Right.
We've been
Watching it in
sitting
slow
here.
mo, you can really pick it apart.
Yeah.
Hey, but the quill and the band were coming in right at the same time. So
Fair.
What are you picking?
Fair.
Also, we don't know. It looked like
Well,
a
it
great
wasn't-
morning. That
it
could have been the
wasn't-
last bird.
You're right.
Maybe you
It
have to
could have
pick.
been.
It could have
yes.
been.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
we'll
For a
follow
lo-
up with Colton and get the rest of the story. But
It'd be a really tough day if you had to choose between a quill and
And a band.
and
I think I'm
band for your
choosing the
last
quill.
bird.
I think I'm choosing the quill.
I don't know. I already have one, so
oh, well,
Okay.
for the rest of us in the room, I think I'm with Nate. I think bands are cool. We're very fortunate here to have so many banded geese, especially early.
Well, and helping with MDC this year,
the
band
Missouri
geese was
Department-
badass. It was
The
really
Department of
fun.
Conservation here does a good job with their banding program, so we get to shoot a lot of goose bands. We
Yeah.
do not get to shoot a lot of quills here, so
No.
I think I'm going quill.
yeah, that was a unicorn. That,
He said,
and it was on that quill was shot on the same field that we've been talking about this entire podcast.
Really?
Yes.
What date did you shoot that quill?
Oh, that was 21. Like
Was that a
it was
little
like
solo
No, it
hunt?
was me and my wife and my neighbor.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
Touching on wild customer pictures. We got one in an Instagram DM last week, 2 weeks ago, and it was one of those ones that like I couldn't see from my computer, and I don't
I know
have
this one.
I don't have Dive Bomb Instagram on my phone. So I walked over to Kyle's office like, hey man, can you pull this up on your phone and see what this picture is? Kyle, tell them what this gentleman sent in.
This is something that never even crossed my mind as a possibility. Okay. So these guys sent in a picture and a video, and they were teal hunting. So they had floaters out using Texas rigs. A gar swam into the loop of the Texas rig and got stuck.
Gilled
basically
himself.
Gilled itself. Just,
Really?
Just
Yes.
a gar, yeah.
Dude,
And
he picked
sent
the
it to
decoy
us
up,
and
but
said-
there's a gar attached.
yeah, it's through the loop. I mean, it's a small gar, obviously, but it's just stuck there. And he sent it to us, and he's like, "You guys ever seen anything like this?" And I was
Sure
like,
haven't.
I'm
First I've
going
heard.
around the office. Nate and I are going to everyone. We're asking Cody. We're asking Aaron. We're like,
You guys ever seen any
"You ever
shit
even
like
thought
this?
this was possible?" And we were like, "Nah, man, that's wild. That is
That
crazy."
is really cool. I've never even heard of it.
It goes well for the saying of like the more time you spend in the field, the crazier things that you'll see, right? Like you're always gonna. I mean, a couple of years ago, a hawk or an eagle, I can't remember which it was, came down and tried to take the robo off the stake. Like cool stuff like that, right? Or you see a coyote come and try to eat a silhouette or whatever it is.
That was
The-
also a customer. The customer sent that in.
no, really.
Yeah,
I've had
yeah.
that
We
happen
posted
in
on
those
our
bottoms
page but
before.
we do have a video that was sent to us on our Instagram. That actually went viral on his page. But yeah, it was. I think it was back to OG V2s. But yeah, the coyote came out of nowhere and just smoked the silhouette.
Smoked a silhouette.
And it was like the closest one. It was the one like right in front of the hide.
The more time you spend doing things, waking up in the woods, waking up in the field, whatever it is, waking up in the marsh, the cooler things you're going to see.
Oh, the cooler you're gonna see more, and you're gonna learn so much more. It's just-
That's true.
you should learn.
I learn every hunt.
Yeah,
Every
learn
single hunt I learned something.
Every single hunt.
Yeah.
And I say the same thing to the guys that work for me. You should be able to learn something every single day, whether it
Yeah.
be how to do something or how not
to do something.
You need to be ever evolving, and like you said, the more time you spend out there, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to see, and that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
You know.
It's really the core group of guys we've got. We've got Bowie and you and Kyle. We've got Daniel. We've got a couple other guys that are kind of Aaron that are kind of in the mix of this guys we hunt with on a normal basis, and then I've got the guys in Arkansas. But something that Daniel always says is data, right? Like he doesn't care if he sits in the woods for 12 hours and doesn't pull a trigger. He just wants to learn. Like there'll be times where he doesn't even take his gun. He just wants to learn and understand like what the hell is going on today.
Right.
But the more data that you can pull in, the better of a hunter you're going to be just in general.
Yeah, just well-rounded, and
Yeah.
you're never going to be able to foresee all circumstances, but the longer you're out there, you're going to be able to foresee a lot of the circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
You know, any
that's-
variable you can take out, the better off you are.
That's how I learned waterfowl hunting in general. Grew up hunting public land and a lot of what not to do.
a lot of what not to do.
A lot of things that didn't work.
I think I learned more about what to do based on what I screwed up previously.
I think the biggest lesson that I learned, because I didn't for a while, everybody's got their game plan. They want to stick to it. I think the best thing that I've learned so far is to not be afraid to adjust.
Yeah.
You know, if birds are close, but they're not quite doing it, whether it's ducks or geese or whatever, when there's a lot of birds around, I feel like people are hesitant to like make a change because you're seeing so many, and like maybe they're working, maybe they're shortstop and whatever, and you don't want to burn them. But like, there's a lot of hunts when I was younger that I probably could have
adjusted
taken 15
something.
minutes and changed something, whether it's the hide, the spread, maybe slid down one way or the other, and I could have shot my birds.
Well, and I think a great part of that is like, if I know that I'm where the birds want to be, that's the first thing I go through in my head, right? Like, am I where they want to be? Okay, I'm going to check that box. Yes, I've done my scouting. I know exactly where they want to be, and I'm there. The first thing I'm going to do, if the first two groups don't do it, is check my hide without a question.
Well, yeah, and
we've had this conversation a million times.
Hide is the first, second, and third thing that you should check.
Yeah.
I mean, you should always.
I don't know a more picky hide person other than myself than Basler.
It's Basler.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I would rather shoot my way out.
Yeah.
Like, you've gone all this way, you've spent all this time, just get hidden.
Yeah.
You remember
if you need to cut a lane after the fact, that's great. But I don't want birds to flare. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Remember the water hunt last year where we were in the kickbacks and gillies?
Oh yeah.
I felt like it was like it was wet. It had been raining. That's why we were hunting, water that's not normally there. The geese were in it. I thought my ghillie blanket was like 100 pounds. We had brushed them so thick and so heavy, and
he still hated the hide.
I hated it.
The geese didn't seem to notice.
But that was one of those spots where it was late season. They wanted to be in that retention pond had just filled up. They wanted to be there. Oh my gosh. I think we could have sat there in blue jeans on high seats and shot them. We couldn't have done anything
wrong that day.
Yeah.
It was
We used six goose floaters.
6 floaters.
Yeah.
And we were shooting them at 8 yards.
Yeah. We spent 2 hours on hides. And
we did spend 2 hours on hides.
22 seconds on decoys.
Yep. Aaron showed up right at shooting light like he normally does.
With breakfast though, so that's okay.
We'll give him that. It was kind of cold, but we'll give him that. It's just, anyways.
But yeah, and that's another thing. Like, I think we had 6 or 7 kickbacks and ghillie blankets that day, and it's not just brushing the. This is something that I like to do. It's not just something about brushing the ghillie blankets, but like I like to brush the area around.
For sure.
Like, take away your hard edges.
Yeah.
You may be taking up a 20-foot area. Brush 40 feet.
Yeah. Yep.
Margins and edges
disappear.
are what kill you.
Bring a rake.
Yes.
Bring a rake.
Because
whenever you hunt, bring a rake.
You're disturbing that area. Don't just disturb that one area.
Yeah.
Disturb it all.
Yeah.
Make
I totally
it look
agree.
like it's meant to be that way. It's that the whole area is like that.
You don't want to be 10 foot wide, right? For your kickbacks or your layouts, you want to make it look like it's a big strip of ditch or a big strip of tailings or whatever that is, right? So even in some of the bottoms we hunt, when we rake up corn stubble, we'll always fill our standard brown bags, right, with corn stubble, and we'll pour it to make our layouts look like they're 40 yards long, just like you said, rather than just that.
Or taper that back off a little
100%.
bit to where you don't have that hard back. You take that scattered out stuff that you.
They start
filled
seeing
the bags
shadows, and it's pretty much game over.
Taper it down, just like you would. If you're laying in the decoys, you're not going to put all tall socks right above you and then go straight down to low socks.
100%.
You have to taper it just like you would your hide, just like the decoys. It's
There's
all the same.
So many variables that we can't control as hunters. Weather, other hunters, so many things. You can control your hide. And that's one thing that people need to focus on. Bring the right tools and take the extra time to get your hide right, because you can control that. And that's usually one of the biggest factors on whether or not you're going to decoy.
Well, there
birds.
are times where we only hunt with 4 guys, and so we only need 1 hivert, but we'll run 2 or 3 just to make that much longer and wider, and we can hide edges a little bit easier. Looks more like an edge hide or a fence row or a ditch line or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not. you know, there are instances where it happens, but the chance of a ditch line that the farmer can't cut being 15 feet long is not normal.
Right.
Where if you make it 40, 50 feet long, that's realistic.
100%.
And, you know, their brain is this big. It's maybe we're thinking too much into it, but hey, I'm going to check all the boxes.
Do everything
like
that I
you
can.
said. Like what you have control of, control it.
Well,
Like,
it's the same reason we ran the Christmas trees out last year, 40 yards from the blind, right? We had Christmas trees 40 yards from the blind, and we had a good congregation of them near the blind, right? So it made it look longer and wider, way more natural.
right.
That's
Absolutely.
one thing I saw a lot of the first time I went to Canada. And obviously I feel like, you know, the guys that own outfits up there know what they're doing. But the first time we put a massive A-frame in the middle of the field, I was like, this is interesting. But we had so much extra brush with us.
Yeah.
And it was actually with Rob at Ranchland. And that's what he's saying is like, you hide in plain sight. You get so big and obvious that it loses that wary factor.
You want to look like a rock pile or a brush pile, right? Something like that.
Anything, you know, you see them up there all the time. You see them out here all the time. Guys cut brush, they push it in the middle of the field. They wait for the right day, they'll burn it.
Yeah.
If you can look like that, the birds are used to seeing that. I mean, you almost, if you get too small, then it does look out of place, especially when you're doing it day in and day out.
And especially with hard edges.
Yeah.
Yes, hard edges. That's what I was getting ready to hit on. That goes away with like the extra brush. You know, take away those hard edges, and then you're really onto something there.
Yeah, I agree. The other interesting, while we were scouting all week, I would say 90% of these groups of early geese were pretty much silent. I mean, not a lot of noise, flying over pretty quiet. When they were in the field, they were totally silent.
They were silent.
Didn't make a noise. So, one thing I wanted to touch on was like, match your calling to what's happening, right? I mean, you know, and I think it's, you always, for me, I see, and I'm not a big goose hunter, but I see a big group of geese flying, and I want to just wail on them. I was like, everybody, let's go, let's wail on them. It's like, wait a second, these geese are silent, guys. Like a couple clucks, a couple here and there, maybe hit them a little hard if they're finishing, you know, far out, but for the most part, match what they're doing.
My favorite hunt is the hunt where you have to touch the call the least. I mean, truly, if everything's perfect and you really don't have to use the call, I love those.
Well, and that benefits with like the spot we hunt a lot.
Yeah.
Just being, like you touched on earlier, being where they want to be. If you're where they want to be, guess what? When they come off that loaf or that roost in the morning, they know where they're going. You don't need to tell them where to go. Plain and simple. If they've been in it for 3, 4, 5 days, you don't need to blow their eardrums off.
I agree.
I think Asher just touched on that too in one of our, just like a reel we released.
In one of the tips.
With like the 5 tips about, you know, you don't have to be a great caller. I think the thing is you just call as little as it takes to get the birds.
Well, and knowing when to call.
Yeah, there's some days where you might have to really get after them, and then that's just how you're going to have to do it. But then there's other days where you don't have to do hardly anything. I mean, the birds will tell you. You just have to pick up on that pretty quick.
They'll tell you exactly what they want.
Right.
And another thing I thought was interesting was this week we brushed all the hyverts. Dan and I cut a bunch of grass, put it on a trailer, put it inside in the garage because we knew there was a bunch of rain coming. We brushed all the hyverts. We brushed 3 of them. And Basler texted me the next day and said, go spray those blinds with bleach. I was like, why the hell would I spray these blinds with bleach? I'm like, what, is this guy crazy? And so I was like, this is his rodeo. I'm just going to do whatever he tells me. So I go and I get a pump sprayer, a gallon pump sprayer, and I fill it with 2 cups of bleach and a gallon of water. And I hit all those blinds, and that grass dried down and browned down so fast. And that's what he was trying to do, was match the color of the corn better than this bright green grass that we had just cut. So not only matching, you know, covering yourself, hiding hard edges, but also trying to do the best you can to match colors is another big part of it.
Right. And, you know, at this point in the season, the ornamental grass that you have around your house, it's not brown yet.
Right.
And
still makes for a great hide.
It makes for a great hide, yeah, especially if you're hunting a fence row that's already green. You know, that's great. But for us, we were, you know, putting them in the corn, and it's like, hey, a week may not be long enough to dry this stuff out. So I was just looking for a catalyst to like speed that process up, and man, they look awesome.
That Snapchat you sent the other day
Yeah.
was killer. It looked
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good.
it's perfect. 3 days it dried it
Yeah.
right out, and it's
Yeah.
completely brown. It looks the exact same as the corn.
What's your preference on? Do you have a preference on layouts versus hyverts? My preference is always hyverts, but
Oh my gosh, I mean, so I'm interested to spend some time in the new Low Pro.
yeah, for sure.
Because I have laid in it. It's very comfortable. I want to lay in it for an entire day, kind of see what it feels like. But for me, it's hyverts. It's just, you can't beat being able to sit there, especially when it's really, really cold.
Yeah.
January, February. We can throw some heaters in there.
Well, we had 10 heaters last year.
Yeah. Well, what was the one day we hunted? It was like -8 for the high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
We were
not a
running
warm
through
one.
propane bottles like they were
Oh,
going
they were
out of
just
style.
freezing up.
Yeah.
And So me personally, I mean, it's hard to beat being in the decoys, a kickback and a ghillie, like completely. You're not there.
Yeah.
Then you're landing geese from me to you. That's fun. Like,
Hell yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
but it's also very, very comfortable and warm to sit in a hyvert. So, like, I would say I prefer a hyvert just because, for one, they're so easy to put together. They're so easy to brush. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just, I would prefer that. I'm more comfortable in a hyvert.
Yeah.
I
agree.
think for me too, comfort wise, definitely the hyvert. But I also feel like with a bigger group, like when we're running 2 or 3 hyverts, it's so much easier hide wise than if you have individual layouts, because every layout is going to have edges.
It's its
So
own edge, right?
So
It's
you're
its own shadow,
basically-
its own edge.
You're
Yeah.
tapering in and out of every single blind. So 2 or 3 guys, no problem. But I
Right.
mean, you get a 10-man or a 12-man, and that's a lot
It's
of
a little
layouts.
hard.
I mean,
Well,
that's a
and-
lot to deal with as far as making sure that you've got everything covered right and tapered, and you don't have just boxes out in the field.
And making sure that, hey, the guy all the way down the line isn't going like this.
That's
True.
Yeah.
True.
You eliminate that by being in a hyvert. You don't, maybe somebody that's not as experienced as far as hunting goes, it's hard to take that. You don't know if they're going to be, obviously everybody wants to watch the birds,
Yeah.
but you can't,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's another variable that you can eliminate by being in a hyvert
Right.
of like, hey, we're not going to flare birds because somebody's pie facing.
100%.
Well, and just from a safety standpoint too.
True,
Coming,
yes.
coming from my shooting background, the hyvert to me is a little bit more controlled, safe environment, especially when you're running a dog.
Yeah.
Strictly because you're not ground level. I mean, you're standing up to shoot as opposed to shooting off the ground.
Speaking of dogs, I think that's something interesting and something I wanted to touch on really quick. I got 2 more topics I want to touch on before we got to wrap this thing up. But for hunting a dog, how do you like somebody to ask? So for me, I've got Charlie, right? Great dog, really like her. We all hunt with her. It seems like 90% of the time when Nick says, "Hey, we're going on a hunt," what I do is I say, "Hey, do you need a dog? Do you want Charlie?" What's kind of the etiquette around bringing your hunting dog? How do you guys feel about bringing your hunting dog to a hunt? I would say I'm probably a little bit more forward, right? Like, can I bring Charlie?
Yeah. Well, and Charlie's a hammer, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Charlie's a great dog.
Charlie is a monster.
No,
she's
I didn't do anything, but
she's
yeah.
very good. Dogs are always such a touchy subject
I
because,
agree.
like, so I have a young dog now. This is his first season. He's 10 months old. I'm not gonna bring him out on these big hunts. I'm not gonna bring him out when we're we got a big feed or stuff like that. For his first season, like, I want to focus on time
Yeah.
with him. I'll get him
Yeah.
birds by myself. I'll do some stuff on the side. A lot of guys, I think, want to try and force it, and it is kind of a tough, double-edged sword thing there, because to make a dog good, they need reps. I mean, at the end of the day, even if they're trained, they know the fundamentals, but they need reps to learn to hunt. So you need to get them reps, but also nothing ruins a good hunt quicker than a bad dog.
A bad dog,
And I mean, and then to the point where it's a safety issue. I mean, that's how dogs get shot.
especially run them out of the hyvert. That's how
Right.
guys get shot.
So it's like, I don't know, it's a tough thing. I think the best way is, like, you got to know your dog.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be realistic with your expectations, in my opinion. If you know your dog's good, like you got a Charlie, dog's proven, and you still ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still like, hey, do you want a dog? Do you not want a dog? You know, if it's your spot,
If it's my spot, I'm bringing.
It's kind of your thing.
Yeah.
But like if you're going with the group, or it's not your field, or it's not your marsh, I would say, you know, number one, always ask, but number two, be realistic with the expectations. When you have a young dog or a dog that hasn't hunted a lot, at some point you need to know when, like, hey, this isn't the scenario. Yeah, this isn't the time to work the dog. This is a hunt. You know, we're here. I'll work the dog on the side.
Yeah, and for me, I agree with that. Like for a long time, I got kind of a sour taste in my mouth with hunting over dogs, and I wasn't hunting over good dogs. You know, I've hunted over Steel, which is Colton's dog from Nebraska, and that dog is a monster.
Great dog.
And you know, freaking Charlie, she's a bad son of a gun.
Yeah, she's a good dog.
So I'll hunt over both those dogs any day of the week. You know, it's a little different for me with hunting a lot of dry field.
Right. And that's interesting. Yeah.
You don't necessarily need a dog, but Charlie saved us a ton of steps.
Yeah,
in a dry
she did.
field.
Yeah,
also a
Chasing
ban.
cripples.
Charlie
Also
saved
a ban.
Also a ban. That's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, as long as the dog is like polished, like Charlie and like Steel, like absolutely, whether it's my hunt or not, I love hunting over a good dog.
Yeah.
But like you said, nothing is more aggravating than a dog that breaks because the safety factor and just the bird factor.
Well, and hunting over a good retriever, whether it's yours or not, is a really cool thing to
It's
experience.
enjoyable,
sure.
no
It's
matter
cool.
whose dog it is.
It's cool to watch them. I mean, it really is cool to watch like a good retriever work. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But then again, there's nothing worse than the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And somebody who's overconfident in their dog's abilities, and whether it's no recall or, you know, there's just so many different
Whining,
variables.
whatever
Yeah.
it is. I think Kyle, to your point, I think the two biggest things are seriously do some self-reflection and understand the capabilities of your dog and understand what your dog is able to do. Just like you this year, he's young. You want to keep him, you know, fairly, you know, to you, smaller hunts, really controlled, which is what I did with Charlie the first year. But really understanding what your dog's capabilities are is a big part of it. And then also the conversation of like, hey, I've got this dog. Are you interested in having a dog? Do you need a dog? I'll be the first one to bow Charlie out. I mean, if somebody's coming to Kings Bend and they've got a dog and they haven't hunted their dog in, you know, 7-8 days, Charlie's staying in the kennel. Let's go run, you know, somebody else.
Nothing more awkward than when everybody pulls up and like 3 dogs get out of 3 different trucks and everybody's like,
and who's running today?
Yay. All right. Yeah, all right.
And nobody said anything.
Right.
Nobody asked.
They
It's
just
like,
showed up.
oh, darn it. Okay.
Yeah. So who's got kennels?
Yeah. The last thing is quite off topic, but I've been doing a lot of research on the moon landing past few days. You guys have any
Slow week, huh?
well, it's been busy, but you know, you get home and you get into this. It's been a thing. But do you guys believe the moon landing really happened?
I haven't done enough of my own research, really. I mean, I don't know. It's amazing some of the technology that we have today, but
We haven't been back.
didn't have however many years ago when we went.
1969. I'm just saying, like,
That's kind of
we have a million times the computing power in our cell phone that they did in the entire space program back then,
that is pretty interesting.
and we haven't
I
been
mean,
back.
I'm going to say I think we went, but also I haven't put the thought in, and I've had my brain twisted into 12 different kinds of pretzel with resident geese this week. So I don't know how much
The
that
moon landing was
opinion-
not on your radar this
Nah,
week.
yeah, I was struggling
Okay.
with some other things.
All
so
right, that's fair. That's fair. I just was curious about how you guys felt about that.
I think we went. I don't know.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
I mean, if we're voting,
I mean,
I'm
at
gonna
me
say
with
no.
your best
Thank you.
conspiracy
See, it's
theories.
one of those things like if you ask the question, majority of people are like, we either maybe went or we didn't went. Very few people are like, we absolutely went.
DM me your best conspiracy theories.
Everybody
maybe
send
I need to read
Kyle
up.
your best conspiracy theories about the moon landing. We'd love to see them.
I'll read through them.
We will.
I need a good read.
We
so,
will.
yeah.
We'll read through them. We may even post the best one.
We'll revisit.
You never know.
Maybe I need to get back on a little bit after.
I'll send you a couple of good podcasts that'll really kind of change your mind of like, Elon Musk says we need 9 refuel rockets to get to the moon, but they did it in 1.
Elon Musk, he's pretty smart too.
He's pretty smart. I'm just throwing it out there.
We have
I'm
very
just playing
different
devil's advocate
algorithms.
for you right now.
Our algorithms are very different.
Our TikTok algorithms
it's-
and Instagram algorithms are wildly different.
I'm just trying to walk him in, just keep him, just fuel him up, see how much we can.
My phone
see
right
how
now
deep
is
we
just
can go.
blasting me with everybody shooting ducks in Canada.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Nothing but that.
I'm really excited to go to Ranchland. First time we leave in 10 days.
It will change your life.
Yeah, I'm really
Possibly
excited.
ruin it. But
Yeah.
it's
It's going to be a good time. We got a lot of good people going. It should be really fun. I'm sure while I'm there, you guys will shoot resident geese and
We'll
I'll
be
miss
closed.
it. Oh, we will be closed. You're right. So I
Yeah.
won't miss that.
no, you won't. You won't
Thank
miss
God.
anything.
No,
And
you
it-
timed it perfect.
Great.
Be able to get the residents next week, hopefully,
Yeah.
and then go
I
off
think
to
we'll get
Canada.
them.
Yeah.
I really think we'll get him. I do. I think it's just managing the field and sticking with the scout group we have. Honestly, I mean, it's gonna be a day to day, almost an hour to hour thing. So
Yeah.
I think
It will
we'll get
be.
'em.
I agree.
And then you will get them in Ranchland.
Yeah.
All of them.
We'll get them. It'll be a blast.
That's
well,
a good spot.
thanks everybody. Thanks for coming on, Kyle. Thanks, Nick. This was great. Great conversation. Again, send us, especially Kyle, send us your favorite moon landing conspiracy theories. We'd love to hear them. Nick, thanks for joining us, talking to us a lot about permission and how you keep that over the years, when to ask, all those things. And again, if you guys have any questions, just reach out, shoot us a DM, send us a message or an email. We'd love to answer them and help you out. So thanks.